for CIT 370 class, and this presentation is about open source firewall. And for our group, we have Logan Hampson, and we have Namdi Ihezie, which is myself. We have Omar Gutierrez, and we have Joan Correa in the group. So for our presentation, we decided to look up an example of an open source firewall, and we came across an IPsec, which is a type of firewall. And just to explain a little, we have so many different softwares for firewall, and it depends on the operating system. So for this, we got a firewall for Windows OS. And just a definition of firewall. So a firewall is a device of hardware or software that manage and filter by rules. It defines all traffic that is incoming or outgoing from the network. So pretty much a firewall is a device that sort of helps to secure our network, helps secure our devices from outside threats. And the second part in the definition is that by rules, a firewall is designed to block the non-authorized traffic and allow authorized communication. So because in organizations we have important data, and it's part of it's important to secure your data and secure your whole network system. So firewall, according to this definition, is used to secure all this, and it only allows authorized people who have like authentication to sort of connect to the network. So, and on this next diagram, we can see how the firewall is illustrated in the illustration of implementation of firewall. We see like a red bricks in the middle, and we see like a local area network by our left, and by our right we see the wide area network, which is the internet. So there are a lot of people out there, and sometimes they want to do like little research on, or they want to like know the company and their product. So let's say, for instance, if I want to go online and check my bank information, I can just Google it and then go online. So since I bank with Zions Bank, and I have my authentication, I have my username and my password, once I get in, I can be able to access my account. And maybe someone out there who is like a hacker or a threat, if he wants to like do the same thing, he has to first go through authentication. And if he cannot be authenticated, there's no way another person can access people's bank account. So firewall, in a way, sort of helps secure some of all this data by first of all providing that wall to filter out any wrong or any unauthorized personnel. So the next thing on our presentation is the types of firewall. So so there are different types of firewall. We have a firewall for your hardware, and I will just read what it says. It says this type normally are installed to protect all the network and all devices inside of it. So the firewall for hardware helps with your physical devices and protect everything in your network. So the next one is the firewall for software. And this type of firewall is used for domestic users. It's installed directly in the computer or your server. So let's take, for instance, if you are working from home, or you just have your network set up at home, you can install like the firewall for your software. That way you can easily secure your data, because there are a lot of like viruses, worms, Trojan, all these malwares, and even spyware that are out there. So having a firewall is one of like the most important way to secure your data. So you can either have firewall for your hardware or firewall for your software. Now the next thing on our presentation is the policies. So there are two basic policies that can work with your firewall. So we have the restrictive policy and the permissive policy. So the first one is the restrictive policy, and what that means is it restricts all except the explicit except it explicitly allows few. And the permissive policy permits all except the explicitly block. So these are like the two policies that regulate your firewall. Now, our next slide, which is open source. Now, on this presentation, we were asked to do research on open source. Now, what does open source mean? Now, open source means source code which is available to the general public. And sometimes some companies just want to have their product for themselves, where they develop it and they sell it to only people who are using their platform or using their product. But open source is just generally like available for people to use. And Linux operating system is one of those open source that do a great job to make their operating system, make some of the technologies available on the internet. So you can just go to the internet and access it and download it and use it. And open source to me, I think is a very good technology, because a lot of developers can come together, and or individually they can just maybe see need to patch or to do any new improvement, and they do it. So yeah, open source is just any source code that is available to the general public. So the next thing we'll talk about is open source firewall. So now we know what open source means, which open source, again, it simply means source code that is available to the public. Now, what is open source firewall? Now, for this our group, we install the IP Fire, and IP Fire is an open source firewall, and it is free. It is a free software and developed by an open community that improve it every single day. So IP Fire is a very good open source firewall, which we found on the internet, and it's very good because they have developers that sort of improve it, look for maybe vulnerabilities, and they try to make correction and make those corrections available where people can go and, let's say, install some of those new patches. And finally, since we are talking about IP Fire, so we have a new release of IP Fire, which is IP Fire 2.19, and I think that's the latest release for IP Fire. And some of the characteristics of IP Fire is that it is set up in 15 or 20 minutes. Like I know for experience, like there was one time I was installing an open source firewall, which is called Indian Firewall Community. That software took me almost like 45 to 1 hour to install it. But this IP Fire only takes 15 to 20 minutes to install. And this product was developed in Europe. So it's a product developed in Europe, and it's made available to everybody, to the public. So anyone who is really interested in this product can be able to get it, and it's developed from somewhere in Europe. Now the next thing, another characteristics of IP Firewall is that it works with hardware appliances for enterprise. So it can work for both. It can work for like a big company, enterprises can help to secure their data, secure their network, and also you can also install it for your own personal use. So The last characteristics for IP fire is that it requires at least two Ethernet. So yeah, so that is our PowerPoint on for our group, just giving an explanation on what open firewall means, and for we sort of like went to download IP fire. So the next thing that we are going to talk about for our presentation is how we went ahead to download it and how we installed this IP fire. And to do that, one of our group member, Joan, sort of downloaded it and tried it and see how it works. So Joan is going to take it off from here and just explain to us how we downloaded it and how it works. So Joan, you can go ahead.
Perfect, Nandi. Thank you. So I have that part to show how the firewall was installed. So the first screen when we are installing the firewall is the screen when we select the option to install. The next part is to select the language for the installation um, and start the installation. Then we need to accept the licenses. The licenses is the GNU General Public License. As part of the installation, we need to delete all data of the disk. In this case, the firewall was installed on VMware, so we need to delete the virtual disk, the data of the virtual disk. Select the type of the extensions of the type of the file system, and the installation is finished for that part, and the virtual machine reboots after that. When the machine is starting again, we can select the time zone. That's the time zone of my country. We configure the name of the firewall, of the host name of the machine. We need to input the domain when where the firewall works. So in this case, the domain name was test point local. We need to define the two passwords for the root user and for the user to manage the firewall. So here we define the password for the root user, and we need to select a strong password. We try to define a strong password here. That is the screen to select to income the password for admin user is for manage the firewall. As part of the installation, we need to select. We need to define how the firewall works. So, for example, in that part, we need to select. We selected the least capacity of the firewall when only have two network cards, the green and the red connection to the network. So in that part, that is enough to the firewall's works. In that part, we select how which network card work in the green as green option and on a red option. We need to review the MAC address of the network cards for select the right card. That's the part of the select. We need to define the, the IP address for the green interface. That is the green interface is the network card uh, um, which work into the network, to the private network, and the red card is the front to the outside, to the internet. Probably we will we it will be connected to the router of the provider. We need to define the other information like DNS, the default gateway of the network. We can do this firewall works like a DHCP server, so we can to define the pool of address to work. Finally, the firewall is working. Now I show us the firewall installed. So is here the firewall installed. Please one moment. This is the firewall installed. The installation was on ISO file downloaded from of the site of the Hyperfire. And that is the no is the administration of the system of the firewall, but we can to access for administrative or for maintenance to the firewall. That's the view to the firewall with CLI access. And here I have one machine on Windows 7 to show the functionality of the firewall. Yes, here is the firewall installed. So that is we can to administrate to manage the firewall when by way web. So it's easy administration. Here we have some options or options of the firewall. So here is the main page when we can find the LAN network, the internal network, and the external or the internet in this case. We have some options here, but for example, the firewall can help with providing backup to the configuration if we need to do maintenance or to need to erase and install again. We have the opportunity to only have a backup and start again the service. Other important part of the firewall is the mail service. We have the possibility to receive in the mail the some logs or some alarms of the firewall work. So that's an important part. Here is the option to see the status of the firewall. For example, the system CPU usage. Here we can to see for hour or for day for see the performance of the firewall work and do maintenance. Other options to see the services these are running or are stopping. We can see here. The other options is, for example, here is the hardware graphs for the works in the firewall. I need to see other configuration. For example, here in the network option, we can to find the especially configuration for the firewall works. So we can to define the proxy functions. We can to select here the IP address unrestricted or allow subnets here. So we need to see how web browsers we can to work with it, or in other part we can to define the filter for the firewall configured. For example, here we are defined all of categories block, and that is the work of the. Sorry. Okay. So here we can to define what domain or what URL are blocked or are in the white list, so to allow the traffic of this part. So we have a lot of configuration and to get a strong security on the network with adoptions. I have uh, example here when we are working with option blocked. For example, if I try to work with Yahoo page. Oh, sorry, I need to check the configuration. Give me 1 second. For example, here we can to block the Yahoo page, Yahoo site. We need to save the rule. I prefer save and restart. Okay, please. Okay, perfect. That is the part when the firewall is working. For example, in that example, the firewall is blocking all traffic because we defined the rule for time to work. So we are defining that it's possible to work between 2 p.m. to 12 p.m. of each day. If that is possible to configure for any time or allowed time. So that's only an example. We can to define a lot of rules here for firewall to create new rules, to communicate networks between the site or to the internet. So we can to define a lot of functionalities for the firewall works. So I think that part is for me. Okay. Namdi,
Okay.
call you continue.
Okay. Thank Joan for the illustration about how about how the firewall works. So this is our presentation for our group, and we thank you for viewing.